Welcome to CatholicAudioMedia.com. We're here every single Monday through Friday, bringing you the program to help you build your faith in a unique way, because we will always bring something challenging. Remember, we don't speak like you find on the other areas that are always talking to you about ways to turn from sin, which is important. But there are also things of what we need to do to reach out in faith, what we need to do to come to a deeper understanding of God in our lives. And if we're not focused on that, by the way, if we focus on turning from sin first, well, we can be an atheist and do that. And I'm going to tell you, people call themselves Catholics, but who are so focused on sin might as well be atheists, because if you look very carefully, they don't have any focus on the grace of God helping them. It's all about, I got to work hard to turn away from sin. You see these on online forums. By the way, the proper term is fora, but people don't use that anymore. So I will say forums, even though it just goes right up my back every time I do, because it should be fora. That is the proper term. But in any case, in other forums, we understand that there's always focus. Oh, this is how we turn from sin, and we've got to lead people to understand. And that's all they talk about. And some people, even though I'm not going to call them atheists, but they might as well be, because they never talk about God's grace reaching out to lead you into eternal life, because this is a cooperative effort. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in this first part of the program. It's a cooperative effort where God is always reaching out to us. And that's the whole focus of our faith. Our whole focus on the faith is that God sent his son. It wasn't that you worked hard enough in order for you to get into heaven. As God sent his son that we may have eternal life. And that becomes the focus, which also is a word that no one uses correctly. They call it foci. It should be foci, but because we stopped using words like that, we're not going to do that. So in any case, we are looking at Monday of the 17th week of Ordinary Time. We're going to be talking more about Moses and as the whole Exodus story continues. But in the second half of the program, we have our first of many, what we will do over the week's interviews. We're going to be talking to Stephen Gesinski about faith and film. Yes, so it'd be very interesting. So Stephen Gesinski's here in the second half of the program. So in any case, we're looking at Exodus chapter 32, and we see that Moses has now come down the mountain, and the tablets have the Ten Commandments on them. No, it's a minor detail. It really is. It's a very minor detail. But if you ever see artistic renditions of the tablets, usually what you see is Moses is holding on to the two tablets, and you see the Roman numbers, which obviously wouldn't make sense, but this is an artist renditioning. It's kind of like people say to me, Jesus was not blonde-haired and European Caucasian. Yeah, I know that. Why? Well, those are the artist depictions. Well, yeah, because those are artist depictions. That's right. But that doesn't mean that's exactly the way he appeared any more than you would have Roman numerals 1 through 10 on two tablets that were written outside of Egypt for a Hebrew audience. But that's a artist rendition. It doesn't mean that that's what they actually look like. And if you look at this rendition in this biblical rendition, this biblical description, you'll see that the tablets were written on both sides. So the Ten Commandments are written on both sides of the tablets, as opposed to just the one side, which you also see in artist renditions. But anyway, we noticed that famous scene. If you've seen the movie The Ten Commandments, which hopefully you have, and if you haven't, you need to see the movie The Ten Commandments. I'm talking Charlton Heston. I'm talking all the rest. Who else was it? Yul Brynner. I'm talking that whole crew. You need to, was it Yvonne DiCarlo, I think, was in that too. If you don't know who's our father, who's Yvonne DiCarlo? Lily Munster. Yes, I do believe she was in that. Yes, Lily Munster. And what a great Lily Munster. The whole crew from the Munsters. Al Lewis was once interviewed on the Munsters, and he said, we all got along, especially Herman and his character. Herman, of course, was Fred Gwynn in his character. And he said that makes a big difference because the camera, if you don't get along, the camera picks up on it. Very fascinating. But anyway, let's go back to what we're supposed to be talking about. We're talking about the what's happening is Moses is coming down the mountain after spending his time receiving the Ten Commandments in that very powerful display that we can see in the movie, The Ten Commandments. And there's that famous line says, "That's not war, that's revelry." And he throws down the tablets. He's so angry. Well, that's not exactly what happens according to the biblical account, but we do know that Moses gets very angry and everything else. But one of the key things, and what's the important thing to look at, is the people overpower Aaron. Now, they didn't attack him, they didn't threaten him, and maybe they did, it's just not in the account. But he found himself unable to stand up against the people. He, of course, was alone representing Moses, obviously God too, but representing Moses. And the people turned on him, and he found it difficult to stand up to them, and they forced him into their plot, which led to making the golden calf. This is an important lesson for all pastors, regardless of the faith, because all pastors are in a leadership role. But that you can struggle with 3 or 4 people who will make it very difficult for you, and they will hurt the parish, which is we don't know how many people were involved in this plot. There weren't that many people involved in the other plot, which was the spy plot to give false information back to Moses about the promised land, which led to the punishment by God. But we see something else here. And in the movie, of course, and the movie doesn't necessarily mean it's accurate, the whole focus is on Dathan, played by Edward G. Robinson. But this is an important consideration. Your pastor needs your support. And if now I'm just saying this generically, I'm not saying this, from my perspective per se. So anyone's, that's because such and such happened at such. No, it isn't. I'm just telling you this in general, because I learned this actually after I did have trouble in a parish where there was a priest who had done his assignment and was moved because his assignment was over. That's the only reason why he was moved. And he was angry that he wasn't allowed to stay. The people were angry that he wasn't allowed to stay. And so they basically took it out on me, completely unknowing, and made it very difficult for me. And I ended up leaving the parish after 3 years. What made it most difficult is I speak 2 languages. And the parish that the head of personnel sent me to, who is no longer living, just for the record, had no Spanish element at all, none, 0. So it was a difficult assignment. There was great people there, but only by a small group that made it difficult for me, because they wanted to be part of this plan to force me out so that the other guy could come in. Well, I read a book by a Protestant minister when I'm in my new assignment, which was in the most Hispanic city in the Archdiocese of Boston. Finally, someone got the message where I could speak Spanish. And and when I was there, but anyway, I read this book, and they said, as we see here, the people who who give the pastor a hard time and force him to leave, which is, even though I wasn't the pastor, I was the parochial vicar, that may be just a small group, which it was in that case, it forced him to leave. Those people, if they keep doing that, weaken the parish, and they will. And the reason is because what happens is the priest who ends up leaving doesn't match their expectations. They get a new priest, or a pastor, could be from one of the other Christian faiths, or even some of the other religions that aren't even Christian at all. And the next person doesn't meet their expectations, so he leaves. The next person doesn't meet their expectations, so he leaves. And ultimately, the parish closes, which can happen, very more common among Protestant denominations than Catholics. But it can happen. And this is what happens to Aaron. He is overpowered by probably a small group of people. They get him to undermine the authority of God, the authority of Moses. They get him to help in building a golden calf, and he doesn't have the support behind him in order to say no. It obviously was a very difficult aspect for him. So always keep that in mind with your pastors, whoever they may be. Regardless, always make sure they feel supported. Now, I've often, including the last parish I was in, felt supported. I want to make that clear. Am I talking autobiographically? No. But I am talking from a real perspective that happened to me early in my priesthood. And it can be very difficult if you're in that position. And every time I read this passage, and I've been a priest for 32 years, I think of Aaron probably was in a very similar position, because there's no way he would come up with the idea to build a golden calf, and there's no way he would follow along, but he was probably overpowered in moral authority. So always keep that in mind. And it's a real dynamic. That's why anyone who celebrates if they force a pastor out has just hurt the parish horrendously, because they've weakened the parish. And they will keep doing that. And eventually you'll see the parish has very few people in it. It is almost collapsed, or maybe collapsed. And they go, well, what happened here? It's because this small group that destroyed the parish. Always important to keep in mind that. And that's what I believe happened to Aaron. We're going to talk more, including our interview with Stephen Gesinski, in his book about faith and film. So we're going to be looking at that on the other side of the break. In the meantime, just hold on, stay tuned, and our first interview in this new format comes up in just about 3 minutes. You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at CatholicAudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out. Patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. We're back, and we're talking about this powerful dynamic that you see with Aaron, and I'm relating to how that can happen in parishes. And I also made it clear that the reason why I left my last parish wasn't because of that dynamic, but it's always there. And as I indicated, the other part that always be aware of, especially as I get older, there are signs that may pop up that say, this is something that needs to be looked at, and if I don't address that, things will go horribly wrong. And so that was one of the major factors in me leaving, and just something that no one would notice, but I noticed it, and I said, this is not good. So I just wanted to give you that information. But at the same time, understand that when you see that Aaron himself wasn't strong enough to counter the people, then you realize that this strength is important. And so it's always important to realize that everyone can end up falling like Aaron because of the dynamics. So anyway, we're going to switch our theme right now, where we're going to talk with Stephen Gesinski, and we had a great conversation. He is the author of the book Film, Form, and Faith, but we will learn more about that when he answers the first question I always ask, as you know, on my interviews. Tell us a little bit about yourself. So let us switch over to this interview. The book, by the way, is available on Amazon in all forms: hardcover rather, paperback, Kindle, all forms, and he's, except for the audio, he's working on the audio. So let's switch over to our interview, our first part of our interview with Stephen Gesinski. So as you know, the first question I'm going to ask you right out of the gate is, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, my name is Stephen Gesinski. I'm a cradle Catholic, but a bit of a revert post-college. Happily married with a pair of crazy cats. And I live in Florida. I'm out of the Diocese of Tallahassee, Pensacola. I co-host a web podcast with my wife called Catholicism and Coffee, and we together have published a few books, and Film, Forming Faith, which we'll be talking about today, is my first one that I've done solo.
Oh, wow. Wow. And is this self-published, or did you work through a publisher? Or
this is self-published through KDP Publishing on Amazon. So.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Well, I self-publish as well, and I think one of the reasons is that it can be easier to self-publish instead of having to go through an editor who's going to form it within a concept. And I'm not sure an editor would say, hey, Psycho has got a good Catholic message, as we will discuss in a few minutes. I thought that was fascinating. I absolutely loved that.
Yeah.
It really does. You've been doing Catholic and Coffee forever.
About a year and change.
Really? Maybe I'm mixing up with somebody else. I seem to remember, did you ever do it a long time ago?
No, it's been about 2 years. It's been almost 2 years, I think.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Catholic and Coffee, I just looked that up on YouTube. And what's your wife's first name?
Beth.
Beth, and that's right. You and Beth, a great podcast, and enjoy it. And we're here talking about Film, Forming Faith. And as I said earlier, we'll get to that. But you're probably the only book I have ever read that can have a faith message from the movie Psycho, but which I enjoyed. I didn't see the movie. I've never seen Psycho, but I've seen the house. I've done the Universal tour, right. So I've seen the house. Well. Let me just give a list of the movies that you touch base on. The Passion of the Christ, The Mask of Zorro, The Fugitive, Star Trek First Contact, Frequency, It's a Wonderful Life, Psycho, Fallen, Spider-Man, and Zack Snyder's Justice League, and also Star Wars Episode 6 and The Hunt for Red October. And you bring out a lesson in each one of those. What led you to come up with that theme?
Well, actually, I kind of ripped it off of something else I had already done. My wife and I did a course together called Morality in Movies, where we would bring out a lesson from each film or a film series. And I wanted to go deeper and actually explore a lot more of the film itself versus the theology, because in the course we hit the theology pretty hard. So I wanted to go more into the movie because I have a background as a filmmaker. I've made films. I have a degree in film studies and communications with a minor in religion, but it's from a Pentecostal university, so I don't count it.
Yeah, you had mentioned that. You went to a Pentecostal university, and you came to the church after that.
Well, I've been in the church forever, but
you were a revert after.
Yeah, I came back harder, more hardcore for various reasons. But yeah, so I went a little bit harder on that, and it just seemed to be my. And funny enough, my wife and I came up with it because we were just. This is what happens with my wife, even back when we were just first dating. We would walk, and I would kind of pitch an idea, and then we would discuss it because we would take these long walks through our neighborhood and such. And she would be like, "This is really good. You should really, expand upon this." And she would give me some ideas, and I started writing the book because we also do a blog for Catholicism and Coffee because we have our website dedicated for all of our content.
Oh, okay.
And I said, a blog post isn't going to cut it, or a series of blog posts are not going to cut it. And she goes, just write a book. I said, okay. Mm-hmm. So I wrote the book.
And it's fascinating. It's not a long book, but you cover all those pages, and so it's a great book for getting a good way of looking at each one of those movies from a Catholic perspective. And you don't want to write something that people are going to take forever to read, and this is fascinating that way. I
wanted to make it readable, an easy read, but also you're going to get a lot out of it.
Sure. No, absolutely. Is there any order to why you picked the movies you picked?
The only one that I picked set the purpose for in the first chapter with Passion of the Christ was just I wanted to get the Christian movie out of the way because I usually woe and lament about the state of Christian films. It's getting better, but most of the time most of them are trash as films, and some of them just are not even good Christian films, to be honest. They're the theology is so poor. Mm-hmm. So that was the only one I was really hardcore about. Okay, I want to hit this home. Funny enough, a couple of The Fugitive was actually not on my original list of movies to go into the book with. But I decided to change it because I bought it recently, and I decided, you know what? This will actually do a better job of wanting to explain the lesson that I wanted to teach through the book better than the movie I originally chose. And I had already used the previous film in our morality in movies course, and I didn't want to repeat myself too much. So I chose that.
And the lesson you bring out of that is kindness versus niceties.
Yes.
Explain that.
Well, I kind of go back to a saying by Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen, who should be a saint, but we're church is dragging its feet on that.
Yes.
That we weren't made to be nice people. And people, the English language is terrible in this, but they basically put, now nice and kind are similar, but they are not the exact same thing. The levels are completely different, and I get frustrated. Oh, he's so nice. Well, is he nice? There are these people who appear to be nice. Oh, he's a nice guy. Oh, she's a nice woman. But once you see past this easy smile or facade that they create, they're actually very nasty human beings. Whereas you have good, kind people. Maybe they're a little brusque, but they would do anything for you. They're the kind people. They're the people that you want to, actually go to when you're in a jam. So that's the difference, at least in my mind.
I thought when I was reading that section, one of the things that popped into my mind when I was in the seminary, and I was 10 years older than my classmates, and they would ask me what I think of a particular person. You could be a celebrity, it could be whatever. And I would say, oh, he's a nice guy. And they'd turn around and say, oh, he hates him. And the reason is because that's how they, which wasn't true, by the way, but they felt that if I called someone a nice guy, then that's that was just my way of not saying, oh, please. And but the reality, I said, no, and that's not what that means. But you can call anybody a nice guy. Mm-hmm. And you bring that out, you could call anybody a nice guy. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm bringing this up too early, but this is something one of my, I don't know if interest is the right word, I would love to see. I'm from New England, and when you think of horror writers, you may think of New England. Particularly, of course, Stephen King. But it's also the home of H.P. Lovecraft, who I love his stuff. Mm-hmm. And I've always wondered if you ever, I don't know if you ever read any of his stuff, but he has two very powerful messages. One of them for just about everything he writes is, don't walk down that path. And the other is in the strange case of Charles Foster Doyle, or now I forget the exact name. One of the characters says, you have the freedom to do anything, but some things just should not be done. And I said, you could do a whole course on that.
Oh,
so
yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's easy to go in depth if you look at some of the greats like H.P. Lovecraft or Stephen King, before he kind of went loony. But you could easily go into various writers and such. For example, one of my favorite book of all time is Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein. And he approached religion very interestingly, and a bunch of other things. And this would be a dime a dozen books today, but back in, I think it was the 50s when it was published. Someone can correct me later. It was ahead of its time. And I find that kind of thing very interesting because it just approaches things so differently. And he approaches people like, in the book, the main character, Michael, he deals with these different religious cults and such, and he's like, yeah, you're doing this all wrong. And tries to help guide humanity to their better natures. Because he's an alien. He's from Mars. So it's kind of interesting, and I find that kind of stuff fascinating about how the different approaches to things we see in our world today.
Of course, that is Steve Gesinski. He is the author of the book, Film Forming Faith, available on Amazon in all forms, soon to be, or in the future, an audio book form. But right now, all other forms, including Kindle, which is what I used to read it, are fascinating, brings up these different moral lessons and faith lessons, rather, coming from the different movies so that he picks, and they're of variety, everything from Psycho to Star Trek First Contact. So I mean, variety of movies. So definitely you might want to check that out. In the meantime, we will be back tomorrow, and we're going to continue. Actually, we're not. We're going to be talking about Martha, Mary, and Lazarus tomorrow, because tomorrow is their feast day. So kind of interesting. We'll see you then. You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com, your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media.